Okay, so as Don mentioned, I'm Trent De Paoli and I'm a 2013 Nuffield Scholar, and my topic that I focused on for my studies is valuating and sustainability after the farm gate. First of all, some thank yous. A massive thank you to Helen Osvich for the continued financial support for myself and for the Nuffield program. To Nuffield itself for the incredible opportunity for me to be honoured as a Nuffield Scholar. A big shout out to Jim Gelch, sitting on the corner here working away as usual, for his tireless effort in developing the people of Australian agriculture. Thank you to the Auschili team for keeping the dream alive while I've been travelling the world and picking up the slack. And to the iTravel Griffith team for their financial support to Nuffield Australia and for certainly looking after me while I travelled. Over the last 18 months, I've had a privilege to travel to these 10 incredible, amazing countries. So, some topic background. The three most common performance indicators that agribusinesses typically look at are productivity, profit and competitiveness. I firmly believe that there's two more factors that agribusiness should consider, and that's valuating and sustainability. In terms of valuating, the Australian fresh produce industry generated 5.5 billion of our GDP in 2011-12, with 70% of businesses registered in fresh produce. Evaluating and sustainability are two very big hot topics I found globally. So with that, I set out to understand what the future holds. In travelling over the last 18 months, I've formed a view, and this is a personal view of defining what I think valuating and sustainability means. And in that, I believe that valuating is the creation of perceived value by the consumer, where additional benefits are automatically assumed, and sustainability being innovative decisions making that minimise a negative impact and maintains balance between economic, social and ecological survival for now and in the future. So what are the key findings? First of all, I started with consumers. As Don mentioned before, they're the one with the checkbook, so I thought that was a great place to start. And I attended a PMA conference, Produce Marketing Conference in New Orleans in 2013. And the US is very heavily focused on consumers, I found. And many presentations were very orientated in that way. The key takeouts that I got from the conference were in particular, the first one I'd like to talk about is millennials. So millennials are best described as street smart, mature, resilient, fast learners who know how to survive urban life. They're fully informed of current issues, are highly tech savvy, but are also in search of a meaningful experience and motivated by deeper concerns more than just money. Millennials are purpose-driven, with 51% actively seeking out brands that do good and act responsibly. In the US, 27% of the population is in this demographic, being born between 1988 and 2000. And similarly in Australia, we're running at about 20.5%. It's quite staggering that the baby boom generation in the US is going to leave an amazing $80 trillion to this generation. So effectively, millennials would be the most financially strong generation to walk the earth. This makes millennials a significant consumer horsepower that we need to consider. Successful brands, I believe, will need to have an emotionally driven story by a sense of purpose that really resonates for consumers. Brands of the future will be driven more by the why rather than the what. There's now more than 6 meal occasions per day, so the days of 3 square meals a day are certainly gone. And consumers are grazing, they're snacking, and they're looking for wants for small bites, smaller calories per occasion, and and seeking more functionality. Consumers want to eat less, but want it to mean more, providing more opportunities for us, I think, in horticulture. We need to think of the demand chain, not the supply chain. I think in the past, too many businesses have focused on the supply chain. I think the future success of our primary production must begin with the end in mind. Productivity gains are important, but the most important element, critical to recurring consumer purchase, is quality, taste and value, and in that order. We need to be driven by consumer opportunity by engaging in research before the supply chain, I believe, can be sustainable. As our consumers get healthier, we get wealthier. It's an absolute no-brainer. Food is fashion. Brian Silverman, the outgoing chairman and president of the PMA in the US, read out this fantastic quote you can see on the screen. And essentially, food consumption has moved past the essential state of survival It's fashion, and we need to capitalise on this opportunity. The next element I'd like to touch on is innovation. I had the opportunity to meet with an absolutely amazing company called Bolthouse Farms in California. And Bolthouse was purchased in 2012 by Campbell's, a major multinational. Bolthouse is built on value adding as their core business, with snacking baby carrots, salad dressings and chilled juices. Bolthouse was the first company in North America that developed the snacky carrot, and they revolutionised the fiscal performance of the commodity whole carrot market. I had the opportunity to meet with Jeff Dunn, the top photo there on the left-hand side. And Jeff's got a very colourful background. Jeff was actually the North American president for Coca-Cola of sales and marketing. And he's gone from a high sugar reliability to a fresh fruit one, which is quite incredible. So I think he's certainly seen the light. I found Bolthouse to be very innovative and dynamic relative to value adding. Bolthouse's charter is quite amazing. What they're about is to inspire the fresh revolution. Their plans are to grow fruit and vegetable consumption per capita through emotional brand marketing or storytelling, packaging and convenience. The critical connecting with critical drivers of innovation, pushing the business into white space product offerings. I found that companies that had a strong innovation plan generally perform well financially, as particularly seen in the case of Bolthouse. Business life stage also played a major role in investment levels, with affluent consumer bases encouraging investment. Research and development was quite interesting. I found that a lot of the multinationals were running at 2% of revenue, whereas levy revenue collection bodies like the Strawberry Commission in California was running at 20%, so it was certainly a big degree in variance. Another great innovation that I'd like to show you is I met with a company called Mace. It's spelled M-A-C-E, but pronounced Mace, in Ferrara, in Italy. That's where he got led Australia in a Ferrari. I had the opportunity to meet Mr. Giovanni Gallerini in that photo there, and he's the technical director and showed me through the business. Mace was a newly formed company in 2000, dedicated to the investment of value-added fruit products. The parent company, Pavetti Holdings, has a strong background in producing flour and semi-processed products right back to 1895 and spans over 5 generations. Pavetti is still very much a family-owned company and very highly innovative, I guess, by DNA. Mace pioneered the sliced apple product. A lot of you would have seen in supermarkets. They were the first guys that pioneered that globally. Mace have gone on to develop a lot of highly innovative products using technologies such as high-pressure processing and pulsed electric field, which are very dynamic. In 2003, Mace launched that product, the kiwi fruit on a stick, and it was launched into McDonald's in France and other European countries, and the product's been very successful. Also do a few other products with fruit cups and beverages. Both Bolthouse, I found, and Mace were both driven by revolutionary and evolutionary innovation, essentially a push or a pull. In summary, I found it's difficult to measure which of the two formats provides the best results, as each business case is different with key individual drivers and different strategies relative, particularly to the business life cycle. What was key though, was innovation was understood first with the consumer and consumer research and understanding consumer behaviour. The next element I'd like to talk on is change, the voodoo of change. I love this quote by Charles Darwin. It's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent. It's the one that's most adaptable to change. Throughout the world, I've found that the value-adding food sector is changing very, very rapidly, as the demand chain and consumer patterns and consumer behaviour is changing very rapidly as well. I personally predict there's going to be more changes in the next 10 years than we've probably seen in the last 100 years, both from an agronomic and a consumer perspective. The curve of change, I think, is going to move from a constant axis to an exponential curve. And as agribusinesses, we need to welcome that change, not to only survive, but to prosper. I think product life cycles are possibly going to be much shorter than ever before too, so driving innovation to stay ahead of the pack. While I travelled, I particularly enjoyed reading a book called Uncommon Sense, Common Nonsense. It was recommended to me by Simon Wallace from Latissimo in Brazil. And I think this diagram here on the slide provides a great example of the strategy winning businesses in the future should engage in relative to focusing on continual change. I believe greater economic returns will reward those to have the courage to be different. David Norcroft is a 2013 Nuffield Scholar. He's also the variety and category manager for Waitrose in the UK. And David made the comment to me on interview, the balance of power is swinging back to the grower. That was a very interesting comment. And his point is that through emerging countries globally having a demand for example fruit products, let's talk about blueberries for example, all of a sudden the primary production has an option. There's a demand from an emerging economy that is prepared to pay. So instead of supplying all my product to Waitrose, I now have options. So more of the control is coming back to the grower. Changing world order. One of the key takeouts I got from my Global Focus program and attending the Contemporary Scholars Conference in Canada was that we connected globally in agribusiness more than I really understood. With the majority of my business still being mostly consumed domestically, I underestimated how truly connected we are. Global changes in food policy, the World Trade Organisation losing power to free trade agreements, which are being developed with sporadic protectionism, changing currency values, rising new economies, urbanisation driving income, nutritious food demand, relaxation of Europe's common agricultural policy, the US Farm Bill, alliances through bilateral deals, climate change, water availability of arable land, and 9 billion people to feed by 2050. Virtually everything is intensely connected, and we must welcome change at a global level as it will ultimately affect our business. Essentially, we need to act local but think global. I put this graph together to outline, I guess, a global view on where I believe vertical integration sits in the demand chain. And you'll notice on the left there, my views are, as primary producers, we often have the highest risk and the lowest return. And as you move from left to right and you get to the point of sale, often I seen it was the lowest risk with the highest return. And my charter is essentially, my recommendation is, as businesses, we should consider as moving as far to the right as we can to maximise profit, to mitigate risk. The other point I'd make is that cash flow is driven down the line, so the farmer is the last to get paid. This is an amazing product I've seen in Comvita in New Zealand. It's a great example of value adding and consumer proposition. So we're talking about Manuka honey. Manuka honey on its own at $5 a unit compared to a skincare product still with Manuka at $500 a unit. I know where I want to be. Sustainability. I had the opportunity to spend the day with Keston Williams, as in the photo there, with a company called Barfoot's of Botley in the UK. And Barfoot's is a privately owned business which was formed by Peter Barfoot in 1976. He started with just 21 acres of tenanted land and now spans over 5,000 acres across the southeast of the UK, Senegal and North Africa, and they're developing in Peru. And this is all, the most amazing thing is this has all happened in one generation. Sustainability for Barfoot's was a blend of three factors: economic, social and environmental, as presented in that slide there. All three have to be beneficial in their view before something is sustainable. Doing one element on its own doesn't make something sustainable. Barfoot's found that doing the right thing makes a good return, reduces carbon or other environmental impacts, whilst not impinging on people, and a detrimental nature wins every time. Of the other companies visited, I found that similarly to Barfoot's, to be truly successful, the overall business must be coordinated in unity to benefit. Integration must exist in balance to achieve a consistent, beneficial and reliable outcome. In terms of value of sustainability to customers, there was a significant story that can be told to consumers fulfilling their why in creating value beyond the what of consumption. Also found that sustainability was often a medium to long-term investment with larger companies were often forging the path. So, some personal outcomes. For me, acting local but thinking global. That really resonated for me in terms of I might be an operation in little old Bundaberg, but my perspective needs to be on a global one, and that essentially is what my scholarship has shown me. I'm more confident in agriculture than ever before. Helping to understand my why. With that amount of travel, there's a lot of self-reflection and really getting to know myself, and for me, it's understanding my why, and my why is making a difference. That's ultimately what I'm about. and I managed to stay married during that time. So that's worth millions. Business outcomes. Confidence to leverage and grow. If my LVR isn't maxed out, then I'm not going anywhere. I've got more confidence than ever before in my business. Expansion opportunities. I identified some opportunities, particularly in the fruit space, that I'd like to see our business take on. We're working on now, and I've gauged that to be worth in the vicinity of $10 million and 20 new jobs in the next few years. And the confidence to explore emerging markets. I think by nature we're scared of the unknown, but I've got more confidence to look at those emerging markets as opportunities instead of going to the developed, affluent countries. In terms of industry outcomes, I think the commercial inflow benefits through expansion are going to be significant through levies, employment and export dollars. And involvement in industry advocacy with Hal and Osberg. Evaluating and sustainability are critical fundamentals that horticultural operations should strongly consider for post-farm gate certainty in the future. I think the next 20 years in agriculture are going to be very exciting and I think financially promising. Successful agribusinesses will find white space. The pendulum is swinging back the other way and farmers will once again be valued. Lastly, I want to thank my incredible wife Sue, who's here today, for supporting me in those travels, and my incredible kids, Ileana and Caleb, who can't be here today. Thank you for your support. And I'd just like to leave you with this closing statement. A farmer said to me when I was 10, the best fertiliser on a farm is the owner's footsteps. But what he failed to tell me was to truly grow, you need to leave the farm gate. And that's what Nuffield does. Thank you.